Well, thanks very much for joining us tonight for our Captains of Industry series.
I will say that it is true that the older I get, the younger my consumer base is, and that's actually very flattering. And it's much, much better than Botox. And today, somebody sent me a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful quote. So this is the first time I actually say it, that Picasso apparently said, "It takes a long time to get to be young." So, anyway, so what is different? A lot is different, and at the same time, nothing is different. I am in the business of. When I first started, first of all, when I grew up, you don't mind if I bifurc a little? Can I?
Sure, please.
When I was growing up as a teenager, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew the kind of woman I wanted to be. I wanted to be a woman who was driving her own bus, a woman who could pay for her life, a woman who was in charge of her life.
Where did that come from, do you think?
The independence?
Yes.
I think now that I look back, I think that the fact that my mother was a prisoner in the most absolutely horrible way probably had a lot to do with it. My mother always pushed me to be independent. Her best lesson that she taught me is that she would not allow me ever to be afraid. Fear was not an option. If I was afraid of the dark, she would put me in the closet, in a dark closet, and I cried a little bit, and then after a while I realized there was no reason to be afraid of the dark. So it may not be politically correct, but it was very efficient. She always pushed me. She always pushed me. When I was 9 years old, I went to see my aunt, visit my aunt in Paris. She put me alone in the train, and of course I was picked up. I mean, she always pushed me to be independent, and independence is the most important for me, and it still is. I still like to travel alone. I love the feeling of just being independent and free. Anyway, so I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I did know the kind of woman I wanted to become. And I met this Italian man who was big in the fashion industry in Italy, and he was very flamboyant, and he had my Maserati, and they had 3 factories, and one factory was a printing plant. He used to print scarves for Gucci and Ferragamo and whatnot. So I learned everything about printing and colors and all the technique of printing. He had another factory which made T-shirts, so it was a knitting factory. So I learned everything about jersey fabric, and at the time I thought that I was doing nothing, but I learned everything from this man. And then he had another factory where he made nightgown and very easy kind of thing. And so I was doing an internship with him and following him around, and he had a little crush on me, but that was no point. And but I had a boyfriend in America. I had met him at university in Geneva, Diane von Furstenberg, and he was doing an internship for Chase Manhattan Bank in New York. And so I went to visit him in New York, and I stayed about 2 months. And there in New York, I had never been. I discovered a whole world of, it was New York at the time, it was 1969. New York was very poor. New York was very cheap to live in, so there were a lot of creative people. It was the end of the 60s. We thought we had invented freedom, and everything was possible. And then in fashion, there was there was an interesting movement. I mean, there were little young designers like Halston and Giorgio Sant'Angelo and all of these people. And so I discovered this incredible world where everything seemed possible. And I did a little modeling while I was there visiting my boyfriend, and then I went back to the factory. And then a few months passed, and then my boyfriend came to visit me, and we met in Rome, and in Rome we got engaged. So we had a big party for our engagement. And then after that, he went around to India, he went around the world with a friend of his, as young boys sometimes do. And so I stayed back in Italy with, in the factories, going from one factory to the other with the Maserati. And one day I'm traveling with the Maserati and I'm feeling a little nauseous, and I think it's a Maserati, but it turned out that I was pregnant. And so all of a sudden, you know, I say, oh my God, I'm pregnant. And I so much wanted to be independent, so I didn't really know what I was very confused. And we're not going to go into a discussion about pro-choice, but I was very confused about what to do. And so since I was engaged, I had to send him a telegram. I sent him a telegram, got back an answer. We're getting married in mid-July. Organize everything. And I thought, oh no. And then I thought, this is, you know, I was very much in love with him, but I really wanted to be independent. So I asked my boss, I said, listen, I'm going to move to America. I'm going to get married and have a baby. But do you think that I would like, since I'm going to America, I would like to, maybe, can I make a few samples in your factory and I will try to sell them in America? And he said, yes. And so that's what I did. And of course, I mean, you know, I had no experience, no knowledge. You know, when the factory would close, I would stay with the pattern maker and take the fabric that was available, made a few dresses. Then I came to America and that's how I got into fashion.